Welcome all to this evening's meeting. We'll start with the meeting announcement. Wendy?
The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend meetings of the public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the Sparta Board of Education has caused notice of the time and place of this meeting to be published in the New Jersey Herald, the Star Ledger, tapintosparta.net, and notice of the meeting has been posted on the Sparta Township School District website.
Thank you. All rise for pledge of allegiance. We'll do that after. Sorry.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Need a roll call, Joanne?
Ms. Collier?
Here.
Ms. Gagnon?
Present.
Ms. Lonsky?
Here.
Ms. McMichael? Mr. Paleshi?
Here.
Ms. Seelander?
Here.
Dr. Serrano?
Here.
Mr. Wood?
Here.
Mr. Morris?
Here. We're going to start this evening's meeting with presentations. We're going to start with an audit presentation by Laura Atwell.
Hello.
You don't want to stay at the podium here. I don't know if I need to turn anything on.
Can't hear her. Is it on?
Is the microphone on there?
I have no idea.
All right, Don?
It is.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank
Yep.
you.
We also have the presentation over here on the board, as well as handouts for the board members, which has essentially the same information. Does the keyboard work the presentation? Great. I'm actually going to hand this to my coworker. It's going to be easier for Kelsey to handle that piece while I'm flipping through the papers. So Kelsey is the manager that came with me tonight. She was heavily involved in your audit over the summer. Well, actually, it was towards the end of the summer. I think we came in for our meeting with the board, got to introduce ourselves. You asked us how we were going to complete the audit. I'd let you know that we were going to put a lot of hours in, and that's exactly what we did. So normally the state has been holding up the auditors over the last 7 years roughly, where there's information that comes for the accounting world where it's for accounting purposes, but not necessarily for the cash on hand. So what you're going to notice tonight is when I go over the information, I've pulled that accounting piece only out, and I'm going to focus on just that cash. So if you were to compare these numbers to the audit, you will notice there are differences, but that's why. So I like to think about the actual cash that we have available that we're able to actually utilize during this whole process. We've been working with school districts for a really long time. We specialize in public school districts. We have a team that comes with us during the process. We harass every member on the business office, and then we do meet with a lot of different areas. We look at your cafeteria, your student activities, your payroll. We get to look at the fixed assets, all the projects that have been going on, and we've had a lot going on the last few years. So it's an exciting time for the school district, and I know we have a lot of projects coming up, and that's why you have your architect next. I'm going to try and go through a lot of information very quickly. If you didn't read the audit, there is a pop quiz at the end, but hopefully you'll find the handout in front of you to help kind of put things in perspective, give you a visualization as to what happened during the year. We've also included information over the 10-year span too. Before we get to the financials, though, I do like to cover one of the most important pieces of the audit, which shows up in the very back of the audit, which is your recommendations and your suggestions. I'm proud to say there are none. Your business office, they were great to work with. They were very helpful. Every person was knowledgeable. Even with Christine, I have to give her a special shout out because she was nearing retirement. Not once did I hear, I'm on my way out. She was great. So we appreciate that help during that process, which did make the audit a lot easier and make it easier for us to be able to make things more timely. With that being said, we're going to move right on to the financials. So with the packet, you're going to notice that starting with the revenues, we had $77,165,000. This was an increase of $1,452,000 since the prior year. Our tax levy had increased 2%. The miscellaneous revenues had increased as a result of primarily our interest, prior year refunds, and facilities use. This is a nice thing that we've seen over the last year and continuing to this year is that those interest rates are finally improving. So hopefully they stay around this amount for longer. We also received $2,282,000 in grants. This was primarily related to the COVID grants, or COVID was a good portion of these grants. There's about 484,000 of those, which had contributed to part of the increase compared to prior years. When looking at our first set of graphs, on the top left, you'll see a pie chart which breaks down your current year revenues. And then you'll notice that Sparta, between Sussex, Hunterdon County, Warren County, we are pretty similar when it comes to the school districts, where the green portion of this pie does make the biggest portion, and then the blue portion, which is our state sources, is a pretty small amount. The state keeps cutting our funding. Hopefully that won't happen to our district, but it's kind of inevitable. But every time they do so, now we have to make up for that money somewhere else, which is going to be your tax levy, which is making it really difficult because not only are you trying to navigate the budget cuts from the state sources, but you're also having to navigate all the increased expenses that we're seeing with inflation. To the right, you'll see the tax levy, the tax rate, over the last 10 years. You'll notice in the first part of that graph, it does dip down quite a bit. This was due to a revaluation or a reassessment during that year. It basically took the whole pot of our taxes and our assessments, and it kind of just shifted them around. It didn't change the total size though, just kind of how we allocated things a little bit. But on the next slide, we have the 10 years. You'll see that a lot of these graphs do stay relatively the same, which is what we want to see. Our state sources, as I mentioned, over the last few years, you do see a decrease in that area. It's pretty common. I don't expect it to go opposite way. Our federal sources, as I mentioned, the last few years, we've had a lot of COVID funding coming through. We do expect that to start kind of dissipating over this year and maybe a little bit in 24, 25 that remained. And again, the miscellaneous income, we had our interest, our prior year refunds, and our facilities use that had increased this past year. Again, the biggest increase with a lot of the districts that we're seeing is primarily because of the interest rates. And then we also had our increase in our preschool enrollment, which is, again, another common theme that we've seen across the state of New Jersey, which is pretty nice because we did have that big dip between 2020 and 21 with COVID. A lot of students didn't seem like they were coming into the districts, and now we're kind of bouncing back from that. As for the expenditure side of things, we had operating expenditures of approximately $71,389,000. Our largest increase for operating expenditures was student and instruction-related costs. When we're comparing to 10 years ago, operating expenditures had increased $13,169,000. Our expenditures had increased from 10 years ago, largely due to our instruction and student instruction-related services. One of the things that you saw in the state of New Jersey over the last 10 years is the shift of the categories and where our expenditures were actually going. One of the biggest categories that we've seen change is actually the student instruction related costs, because the state started putting a lot of implementation as restrictions as to what we were supposed to do. The state likes to oversee everything. So one of the things that we started seeing is, for example, we needed a librarian or a specific media person, or maybe before we didn't have a media person, but we had a librarian. Now that title has kind of shifted to that route now that we're going more electronic with things. So it is interesting to see how those costs have changed in the different categories. They might have, they continue to go up in some because the costs are just going up astronomically. In others, we kind of expected to see them go up, and they are common across everywhere we're going. So on the next slide, you'll see we have a breakdown of the last 10 years for the expenditures. The instruction Again, the costs they're just climbing up. They continue to do so. They're really hard to control. A lot of these categories are going to follow exactly that suit. We have our inflation that's happening over the last couple of years and continuing. With the other instruction, that does include our special education. So a lot of times you're going to see that category as well as the one right below it on this screen, the student instruction related services. A lot of times you'll see both of those categories both go up at the same time as a result of your special needs students, because your child's study team is included in this, as well as other like resource rooms, other special categories that are primarily related to our special education. Another common theme that we're seeing is the transportation over the last few years has really spiked since COVID. And that's every school district we've been in practically. So that didn't deviate from what we expected. Employee benefits, we have been pretty steady over the last 10 years, was pretty good, along with our general administration. And then our plant operation maintenance, this has actually stayed relatively steady too. One of the things that you usually see with the plant and maintenance is it might fluctuate from year to year based off of the different projects that we have. For example, if we have to start doing a lot of maintenance inside, but when we get to the fund balance, you'll see how those reserves had helped kind of steady those costs too. As for our fund balance, we had $1,257,000 set aside for our capital reserves. We have $536,000 for our maintenance reserve. Encumbrances, which are items that we had ordered but not yet received at the end of the year, was $1,436,000. $1,100,000 is for the middle school and relating to the roof, and then $139,000 was related to our bathroom renovation. We had an allowable unrestricted. In the last couple of years, the state had changed the restriction associated with this category. We were allowed to have 2% of our operating expenditures. This was allowed to be our unrestricted fund balance. Over the last couple of years, the state said you can go from 2% to 4%. And then this year that we just ended, though, we went back down to that 2%. So we did have that shift. When looking at the graphs, at the bottom, you'll see we have the restricted, which is our excess surplus. We have the encumbrances. I expect the encumbrances, this graph, to actually shift quite a bit from year to year, because really it's just items that we had ordered or projects we might have started, we just haven't finished at the end of the year. And then with the unrestricted, this is one that doesn't tend to fluctuate too much, but you do see in 21 and 22 where we did have that spike as a result of our 2% moving to 4%, as well as this category also includes extraordinary aid, which is a catch-22, because in order to get this aid, you have to spend a lot of money on your special needs students in order to be able to get anything from the state, which is an application process where they're essentially reimbursing us at the end of the year. So sometimes you do see spikes. There was a year about 2 years ago where the state, they decided to reimburse us, say 90%, but then the following year they would change their formula and then drop it down to 70% or 50%. So now really we don't know from year to year how much that amount's gonna be. One of the biggest questions that I get from my school districts is, how are we doing? How would you compare to other places? I try not to compare my school districts from one to the next, except for the trends. We do know which categories are probably gonna go up and down based off of the trends that we're seeing. But the biggest piece when I'm trying to evaluate how well we're doing is to look at our reserves. Are we maximizing all of our reserves as well as our unrestricted allowable amounts? Because the state does put a lot of restrictions on us. So we want to be able to make sure that we're trying to meet those restrictions. One of them being our capital reserve, which is based off of our long-range facility plan. The state tells us we can have up to 60% of that plan put aside. One of the biggest things that we see here, sometimes with the capital reserve, when we see the ups and downs with it, ideally we want to see it go up. But at some point, we're going to use that reserve for exactly what it was intended for, which you do see happening over the last couple of years. But now that we've kind of used it for those purposes, we know that we have a lot of projects that are coming back up. So again, we're going to have to replenish those funds. With the maintenance reserve, this is another one that the state has a lot of restrictions on. It's based off of the square footage of our building, and that's how much they allow us to put in it, which is a lot less than our capital reserve. It's a lot easier for us to try and maximize that one. Obviously, every time we do a capital project, we're gonna have to maintain that project. And as we mentioned before, when we have the plant and maintenance category and we see those ups and downs, this reserve is gonna kind of help offset those costs and how they were going up and down. And our biggest driver for everything that we're doing is our students. So here we have our enrollment over the last 10 years. One of the nice things about Sparta is that the graph doesn't shift too much. A lot of our districts over the last 10 years, especially in, say, Hunterdon County and Warren County, have seen a 28% decrease. For years, I kept telling them, I'm hopeful that we're gonna start steadying out, and we're finally starting to see that. So over the last 10 years, Sparta has only seen a 9% decrease, which is pretty good. And then, however, when we're comparing to the last year, we actually had a 2% increase. So we are going in the right direction. Hopefully we continue that way. This is one of the better districts to be at when it comes to the enrollment, because those 28% decreases are very scary to see. You have seen a lot of places consider whether or not they need to keep all of their buildings and how they needed to shift things around or kind of move the grades from one building to the next. So I know I cover a lot of information in a short span of time. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. If you think of something later down the line, you're more than welcome to reach out to myself or let Joanne know, and she can relay the question to me, and you have my card if needed.
Anyone have any questions?
Seeing none, I thank you for your time, and I hope your meeting goes pretty quickly tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me? During the agenda items, if you want to wait public session, if they're going to stick around
When is your public session?
after the next presentation.
Kurt, I'm so sorry, I must have missed the window, but I do have a couple of
Okay,
questions, if
you
that's
can-
okay.
go ahead.
Thank you so much. And I can email you, because I'm sure I'll come up with more as I pour through it more. You had mentioned that the audit was more based on cash on hand assessment as opposed to you kind of put accounting to the side was the way that you explained it. Can you just explain that a little bit further for the people watching?
So the information that's provided by the state that goes into the accounting process is related to our other post-employment benefits as well as our pension benefits for our retirees. What happens a lot of times with the accounting side is they will give us information, it'll come in as a revenue, and a lot of times go immediately back out as an expenditure. So there's one piece that's just a wash. There might be an expense or a benefit that's also related to it, but we don't actually get to physically see that money coming through. So that's what we kind of, if you think about when you're doing your taxes as a business owner, there are two different types of basis typically that you're used to. You have your accrual basis, and then you have, say, your cash basis. Cash basis is going to be physically exactly what you have in your hand, what you're able to go and spend that day. And we always talk about cash flow. When it comes to the accrual basis, this is where we start thinking about the potential liabilities that we know are there. We have to pay our car coming up. We have to make our mortgage payment. We know those are going to happen in the future, but they might not necessarily affect our cash on hand right that second. That's what's happening with the state-provided information, but that money doesn't even when the liability does happen, it still doesn't actually affect the school district. So it is for accounting purposes solely.
Thank you so much. And then one other question. In terms of our capital reserve, the actual that we have versus the maximum allowable through the state, same question for the maintenance reserve. I'm sure that the recommendations you said you don't have wouldn't necessarily apply to this as much as general practices. But my question would be, based on these numbers we're seeing here, is this ideal? And do you have any specific recommendations you can make in terms of bolstering this, knowing that we are in the process of not only completing some projects, but also we have many on the horizon? So kind of twofold, is this ideal? And also where should we be, or where would the average aggregate be based on where we are right now?
Typically, with my more financially stable clients, I do see that they are closer to about 50% for their capital reserve, and the maintenance reserve is closer to being max at the highest level of available allowable amount. Obviously, there are going to be times where we're going to be lower, where we had some massive projects going on. One thing to consider, I know Joanne and I have talked about referendums. They're a very difficult item to talk about. Nobody wants their taxes to be raised, but there is a positive to it, because when we go to a referendum and we get a state approval, even if we don't act, I'm going to let you in on a secret. So even if the state says you can do this project and your taxpayers say, yes, you can do this project, the state decides we're going to pitch in too. You know, you went through that whole process, we're going to give you a little benefit. So then we get some savings on the project that we thought we were going to put $1 million out, or 30 million, or 50 million. Now we might only have to put out, say, 44 million instead of the 50. The other thing with this is if we do a smaller referendum, for example, if we had the capital reserve set aside, we know we have the cash, but maybe we still want the benefit from the state. One option is actually to still go to a referendum, and instead of getting the bond and going through that process and worrying about the interest rate with that, you would instead get a bond anticipation note. And you would pay this off just, say, a year later. And the result of this is actually the state will give you that benefit as if you had gone out for a bond sale, which is an unusual route. I've seen a couple districts do it over the last couple of years. Before that, I had never seen it before. I was amazed that the state contributed, and I thought it was a great idea, especially for cash flow purposes, because then it gave us more flexibility with things, and it did allow us to get that savings from the state, which we normally would not have seen if we had gone the regular lease route or paying it fully out of pocket. So that is something to consider, just for the back pocket.
Last question. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but when you say more financially stable clients.
Yes, I don't mean to say that you're not stable.
That was my
I
question.
do want to clarify, like I said, that's why I try to mention we have a long-range facility plan. We have a lot of projects that we want to consider. There might only be certain projects that are more immediate than others. So our long-range facility plan might be pretty substantial compared to my other districts that might be smaller, where they don't have quite as many projects and they know those are coming up soon, where they need to start actually packing away that money in order to be able to help those costs coming up. So really it's going to depend on what our next couple of years look like, those projects, if we're going to be able to cover those costs. Otherwise, if you know that are more immediate, those are the projects where we're going to want to try and get those reserves up in order to meet that goal. So not necessarily 50% or anything like that. Again, it's going to vary from district to district. When I say 50%, it's probably a district that's a lot smaller. They have a lot less projects and a lot less buildings.
Thank you so much.
Is there anybody else? No? Thank you. If you want to stick around a little bit for a public session, it'll be coming up next.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. The next presentation will be by our architect, along with Dr. Beck, Alan Barnett.
Yeah, you can control.
How far is that mic?
That mic's tethered there if you want to walk. I'm sorry? What's that? It's tethered there, so. To be recorded.
The at-home
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'm short?
Yeah. All right, good evening. So you all know who I am, but I am joined by Alan Barnett of DeCara Rubino Architects. Alan Barnett has been our architect for the past couple of years, and he has been doing a lot of work with us, including the collaboration on this preliminary referendum proposal. And I want to stress preliminary. I'll get into the actual presentation. So I want to stress that this is preliminary. So we all know and acknowledge that Alpine School, that the population is growing at Alpine School, and as the population grows, the space at Alpine School seems to shrink, right? So just a little background regarding that, and I've mentioned this before at board meetings, but I want to just reiterate how and why we are where we are up to this evening. So the background is, and I've said this before, years ago, the pre-K program at Alpine School was a half-day program, and as was the kindergarten program, was a half-day program. So, and then years ago, they decided to go from half-day to full-day programs for pre-K and for kindergarten. And what that did was, if you have a half-day pre-K program and you have one classroom, you can get 2 classes into that classroom. But when you go full day, now you have those 2 classes now need 2 classrooms. So when the decision was made to go full day for pre-K and for kindergarten, at the time, the decision led to the fact that you would need double the amount of classrooms. And you couple that with the growing population that is happening at Alpine School and throughout our district, and as the auditors point out, is usually a good problem to have with a growing population, just not so much when you're talking about space in a building. So we, as an admin team and as a board, we put in a lot of work. Mostly as an admin team, we've met multiple times for hours upon hours trying to figure out exactly what we might be able to do within our current building structure. Talking about moving grades, renting extra space. There was a bunch of different options that we went through, and we created pros and cons lists for all of those different options. And the bottom line was most of those, well, pretty much all of those were not feasible, or what they would do was cause, they would just move a crowding problem from one building to another, or cause all kinds of other logistical issues, because all of our other buildings are running close to capacity as well. So moving grades around would just move problems around as far as population goes. So what we landed on was, let's pursue the idea of a referendum, let's pursue the idea of expansion. So the next step was, hey, let's pursue the idea of building a brand new school, which would be a great thing. We ran into a lot of problems when we were looking at property, and I've gone over this at previous board meetings before. We looked at township-owned properties, we looked at district-owned properties, we looked at properties that would possibly be for sale. And none of those properties would work as far as either building on those properties or as far as location goes. So we abandoned that idea and came up with the idea of solving Alpine's problem by adding on to Alpine School. And that's where we are this evening. We have a proposal. Mr. Barnett came up with a bunch of different options, actually, as to how we might be able to add on to Alpine Elementary School, and what would adding on to Alpine Elementary School do for our population. Building addition would apply to the Alpine Elementary School in order to accommodate the growing population. The specials would be housed in their own classrooms. They would go back to their own classrooms. We could design the addition to encompass a room that was made for music, a room that was made for art, and of course, other classrooms. The modulars would no longer be used as classrooms. As we know, the modulars have been there for quite some time, and they weren't designed to be there for quite some time. So those would no longer be used as classrooms, and we would repurpose them. All of these proposals, all of these options actually have us keeping the modulars there, but not using them as classrooms for children. And the addition would provide, obviously, the necessary room for growth and regular classroom spaces, and additionally, some small group instructional spaces. What a referendum would also include, and we are still working on this, is all of the other buildings receiving essential upgrades. And those examples of those would be like our elementary schools. Our elementary schools have partial air conditioning and HVAC work. What we would do is we would make sure that all of our elementary schools and all of our buildings would have air conditioning. We would put new windows in, we would put new doors in, things like that would be part of the referendum. So what you would end the referendum with is necessary upgrades to all of our facilities and additional space on the Alpine campus. What you'll see tonight when Mr. Barnett walks you through the different ideas is you'll see an additional gymnasium at Alpine Elementary School. That additional gymnasium would increase use during the school day, and it would provide for community use outside of school hours. As you know, at Alpine Elementary right now, it's a multi-purpose room. It is used as a cafeteria. Therefore, it is out of commission for phys ed class during lunch periods, and this would help with operations as well as with community use outside of school hours. Eventually, again, this is all preliminary tonight. This is just this is where we're at right now, giving the board an idea of what this might look like. As the process progresses, we will have public input sessions and decide what the next steps are as a board. And obviously, I spoke to our collaboration with DeCara Rubino and what they've done with us so far. And I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Barnett, who can walk you through the highlights of the multiple designs that he has.
Thank you very much. When we started out with this, we set a benchmark for the various options that we're going to study at Alpine. Those include a 2-story building addition, which will house 7 pre-K, K classrooms, 10 academic classrooms that will be sized for grades 1 through 3, 3 small group instruction spaces, miscellaneous support spaces, and a multi-purpose room. So what I'm going to do, I think there's 9 total options. I'm going to walk you through them. They'll start to get repetitive towards the end, so we'll go through them quickly. And then if there's any questions along the way, please feel free to jump in and interrupt me. So when we looked at Alpine School, in particular, we looked at the back portion of it and how that could handle, there's no way I can go up there and talk? There's no.
Not while incorporating the folks at home.
Okay.
It's taped. Yeah.
Can I take that one?
Here, just leave that on.
This is so, and then I just have to tell you? Or do
can do that.
Can I have the
Yes.
Bring it
keyboard?
over, it's wireless.
I could help you, no. You want that? No, all right.
All right, so we looked at Alpine. We looked at the back portion in particular as it comes off the octagon-shaped modulars that were done. I think they were done back in the 60s or 70s. And how we could make that tie-in connection happen so that the addition still felt like part of the school. You'll see where we looked at this building a little bit later. This is the modular classrooms which we left alone. They're going to be repurposed for district storage and some other spaces which we'll get into as the referendum progresses. But the first piece is you come off of this one here, we have an academic wing that comes off of that, keeping the pre-K on the first floor with the academic classrooms up above. There is a current loop road that goes around the building. This bus drop I left, this bus parking lot I left where it is in this option. So I cut that loop off, but I created a new little turnaround drop-off area for pre-K in particular, to where they can do a kiss and drop and off they go into the classroom, as opposed to working their way through the entire building to get to the kindergarten. Off of that is I put the new gymnasium multi-purpose room. Now that's sized I sized those up in an elementary school because those are typically used for the after-school programs, the rec program. So that's actually sized to handle a middle school grade basketball court as opposed to just elementary school, with bleachers so that it can be used after hours and on weekends. In this option, I needed to move the playground area from here up to here where the ball field is. Now, one of the constraints of this site is there are wetlands. This was a common recurring theme on the properties that we looked at in Sparta, and that really started to narrow down where we could build in Sparta. So you see this light line delineation in the green change. That's your actual wetlands line on this site. This line here is the 150-foot buffer mark that's required by the Department of Education, or not, I'm sorry, the Department of Environment, the DOE. DEP, I'm sorry, DEP. So we had to stay inside of that, okay? The next piece we need to work on with Alpine with this is the topography. So as this builds momentum, now we'll start to study topography and how this works with the landscape.
I'm sorry, just,
Sure.
where's,
Okay for public?
just to
Where-
understand this, where's the building right now in this? We're just trying to figure out where's.
Oh, the existing? Oh, okay, parking is here, I'm sorry, parking is here.
Because we don't know, I don't know about that part.
No, parking is here. This is the existing building. Main entrance is here. Baseball, there's a baseball field here, sewage treatment here. The site tapers down towards that, okay? Does that give you a better frame of reference? I apologize, sometimes sometimes I've been looking at it a lot longer. So we get into option 2. Again, this is going to start to be repetitive. Base layer is all the same. The classrooms, the academic classrooms, the small group instruction spaces, the gym, they're all going to be the same. It's how the kit parts get reworked to fit with the different options, right? So with this one, I took, in one you had the gym up here. This one I brought the gym down here. I felt it was better for connection to the after hours. Brought some parking in over here. Kept it very linear. Changed the position of the end of the connection back into the existing building. Instead of on the end, it's now kind of in the middle. And this incorporated an exterior connection there. Can you see okay? Option 3, I think we made it a little more, again, more linear, but I brought the gym, instead of up, it's now down, making more of that connection point. Got rid of on this one, we kept the turnaround, but I got rid of the kiss and drop on this one. Again, that's all stuff that gets worked out as the project builds momentum. Same thing, Dr. Beck mentioned music room and art room. I kept it all consistent for these options for now. As we go into the programming, that's when we start to see, okay, what do we need to do? How does this need to ebb and flow? I'm just showing you 9 tonight. There could be 20 more before this thing materializes. Now, this one, it's not my favorite, but I show them anyway. I turn it into a 90-degree. I'm kissing that 150-foot mark from a Department of Environment standpoint. They're not going to really be happy with me with this one. But I want to show it to you guys anyway so that you see what the impacts are. Turn it 90 degrees. Still has that turnaround, parking. The kiss and drop doesn't happen on this one, so the kids will still all filter through the existing building. Taking a different direction, going over to the other side of the site. Linear option on the other side to see what that does. So as we study this further, puts the gym at this end, moves the bus parking from here over to this portion of the site, allows that to be parking after hours and on weekends, and allows this to have an entrance here, makes the connection, instead of in the octagon piece, it makes the connection to this addition. I think it was done in the 80s, I think. Again, a very linear scheme. Front to back, brings the playground from here down here. Keeps a turnaround here. We don't need the turnaround here, but when we go to meet with the fire department, they're going to want to be able to get emergency apparatus close to this, so they're going to want that close proximity to be able to service or fight the building if need be. Again, just chinking that, flipping it now to this side. You come out this side of this building, keeping this. I brought a parking lot into this option, for, again, to work with the gymnasium, linear option with the academic wing. 6A that just changed the bus, that's right, that just changed the bus parking lot. Parking lot rotation, 6A changes it from here back over to here. 7, I started to get, well, let's think outside the box a little bit. Let's start to play with shapes. Let's start to see what we can do here. Create something that feeds off of this intersection and creates something connecting these two existing structures and works off in that manner. Gets the gym pushed more towards the back of the property. And then lastly, building upon that, flipped it a different way, got the gym over on this side, academic wing pushing out there. This creates a much bigger connection point between utilizing a more of a direct connection for the gym for after school and evening. Each of the designs are designed to where the gymnasium can be shut down. Okay, the academic wing can be shut down from the balance of from the gymnasium for after hours. So you'll have a control point right with the toilet rooms so that this building can function by itself and not have to open up the whole building. So some of the next steps that we need to do as this moves forward, which we've already started the process, is update your demographic plan, update your demographic report, so that we can find out what the projected enrollment is, and ultimately what leads to a phrase called unhoused students. Okay, doesn't mean that students don't get to go to school. It just means that the capacity of the building. That is a big determining factor. You hit on it with the state aid. Okay, that unhoused students, along with another portion of the referendum, which I'll talk about in a second, helps determine what your state aid on a referendum is. Okay, there's a whole formula that's probably close to 30 years old with the state on how to calculate state aid for new construction based on unhoused students. The other piece is, as Dr. Beck mentioned, we are narrowing down the facility improvement portion of it, which will go across the entire district. That piece alone, that renovation, facility improvement, you get a certain percentage, which is 40%, roughly 40% debt service aid on that work. So it's a balancing act with the referendum, right? You want to build an addition, but you want to try and maximize your renovation and your facility improvements. So when we get into some options where we're going to be touching the building, we try and make sure we kind of try and touch as much as we can, but without impacting the school too much, because that's a factor in your debt service aid. The only way to get debt service aid is to go for the referendum. If you were to fund this out of capital reserve, you would not get any funding, any debt service aid out of it. Even another thing I want to just talk about quickly, why I've cited the building the way I've cited in all these examples. I'll use this one for example. Why I've cited this the way I did is once this passes and this goes in, and this is the option, we're looking at how to build this building without interrupting all of the operations, the day-to-day operations of this. Okay, so if you look at every one of my options tonight, I'm kissing the existing building. We can do that because we can then control the construction site, minimizing the impact to the existing building. Minimizing the impact. Yes, it's going to be noisy, and yes, there's going to be a lot of distractions for the kids, but we're not displacing kids, okay? We can look at options. I don't recommend it, but we'll look at it if the board would like. Putting a second floor on places, there's pros and cons to that. Pro is you get a little bit more state aid because you are touching the building more. Con is every kid that's in this wing has to be displaced for 18 to 20 months. So now you're talking about putting those kids somewhere else. That's why all the options I've shown you tonight, just kiss this, okay? Another option, you know, the costly, it gets very costly to do the second floor because you need the stairs and the elevator and, you know, a lot more things. I think that's kind of it. I know this is just the start of this. We'll look at a whole lot of other options, and I will be back a lot more times to show you guys how we are every step of the way.
Yeah, I think what we'll do from this point forward is allow the board time to digest these. I shared them with you all yesterday in an email, the same exact drawing. So you got them explained to you this evening, but it was only 24 hours ago that you saw them for the first time. So go through them, you know, give me a call. If you have questions, we can always pull Alan in on those questions, and we can start to narrow this down, start to come up with more plans and figure out what the next steps would be. Again, this is all preliminary. This is just showing what we could do and what we possibly would do, but this is a starting point, and we got to start somewhere because it's been talked about for years. It's been talked about before my arrival, so we are actually starting somewhere. This is where we're starting. I would think so, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hi. Thank you very much. That was a really great presentation, by the way. And all the options look amazing. I don't know if my microphone's working. I was curious about the process as far as, I know this is very early, I realize. But as far as the remainder of the process in your experience doing this before, how much input does the building administrator, the staff, the people that are existing there have in all of these options? I'm assuming they're always looped in, but
Yeah.
it seems like, especially Mr. Miller would be like the, you know, a really great asset as far as like what would be best or what. So I'm assuming he's there like kind of all along the way, or
Well,
do you have
again-
a committee that you form, or?
Again, as this ramps up, that's completely at the discretion of the board. It could be 2 people, or it could be 100 people. But, you know, the more chefs in the kitchen, you know, how.
Yes,
that was-
so far, the involvement has been asking, in fact, we've walked around the property with Pete and with Katie at the time, Madsen, to just start looking at property, looking at how this might shape up, and then asking Pete, in an ideal world, how many classrooms would this be? What would those classrooms be? You know, art room, things like that. And that's what we've done so far. And that's pretty much been a lot of the admin input so far. Because we can talk about a lot of things, but is it physically possible? And that's, we have to get Alan involved before we even talk about what is actually possible.
The first piece is always to see, is it physically possible?
Right.
Right now, we're still flying at that 35,000-foot elevation,
Yeah.
right? I show furniture and I show stairs and toilets.
Toilet rooms.
Because that's easy.
Yeah.
You know, we have those. They're just, and my guys like to draw, so they just, but we're not there yet. Okay, the shape of this is not, this may not be the final thing that hopefully gets built.
Right.
You know, it could, when we start to hash through these 9, you may say, I like the gym in option 1, but I like the entry in option 2, but I kind of like option 8 because that's, you know, fun and different. You know, so then I take that and I go back and I mold those together and see what we can come up with. You know, as well as whatever I can think of that nobody else has thought of yet. And I come back with all those.
And we'll take some time to get the feedback from the board and narrow it down and maybe come back with just a few options and then do a public input session at that point too. And then at some point, not a year from now, before that, we need to really just nail something down, that this is what we're doing based on what our needs are, what the board wants, what the community thinks. And this is what we got to do, because that's only the start of the process, right?
Yes.
Because from there, then Alan has a lot of work to do for the next 7-9 months, right? As far as the DOE goes.
It's 11 months from when you say, I like this option, to a referendum vote date. And we use that referendum vote date and always work backwards. So there may be times where I'm pushing Dr. Beck and saying, hey, I need an answer. Because otherwise, we're going to miss. And if we miss, were the next referendum date. And that's.
When you miss a window, you might be missing 3 to 4 months of a window.
Right.
So we need to take our time and do this right, of course, but also make sure that we keep the process moving, or we will just be talking about this for a very, very long time.
And then after the vote passes, there's even more work to be done. That's even, so this is the start. Tonight really is the start of a multi-year process.
Yeah.
Start to finish, right? Before kids are in the building. It's a multi-year process. And the other thing too is, you're not taking kids on January 1st. You're taking kids on September 1st. So we have to target, if we miss that September 1st window, or that date, those kids are coming, whether we like it or not. So we take those, we set those milestones and we set those dates, and those become engraved in stone, and we work backwards from those. So if you guys say to me, we want to be in by September of '26, one, that's very aggressive, but that would be my first thing. It's like, no. But we work backwards from that, right? 18 to 20-month construction, 3 months bidding, 6 months plus of documents. Then we figure out, okay, well, there's your referendum. And also, what we also do is we'll work with you on what referendum dates have the best track record, right? Which ones work better than others for voting.
I have another question. I think one of my favorite parts is that the main building stays intact so that it can be fully operational, because obviously there's zero time to waste with any of that. So I think that's really wise, and maybe this is silly, but I just wondered if there was any benefit cost-wise to keeping as many things as you can in the back where they are. Do you know what I mean? Obviously there's a lot going on in the back, so there's all the spaces, but would it be helpful at all to try and keep paving or
we try.
playgrounds?
But in the end.
Or it's just all of money, it just costs, like it doesn't matter.
In the end, let me pull up. Okay, say we pull up this one, right? Your playground's about here.
Right.
This is where this is. Contractor's gonna take all of that, right? He needs staging, he needs, so
It's all going anyway, you mean?
it's kind of going
Yeah,
anyway.
okay. All right.
This is going anyway, because it's close proximity to the construction site, so that's going anyway. This, we would put this in the job that they would have to re-mill and pave this, because they're gonna tear it up, right? They're gonna come, they're gonna pick from here, they're gonna pick steel from here, they're gonna tear this up, they need lay-down space, they need trailers, they need storage, so they're gonna end up tearing this up during construction.
So the whole back obviously has to kind of go to save
Kind
the front.
of go, but if you look at, this option, we could do something like this first, right? So the kids can go from playing here to playing here. We put in the job, safety, the fact that we have to monitor which way contractors come and go, deliveries. That's all part of what we do as architects, as the architect so that we'll say, okay, this gets shut down at 8:30, right? It's an elementary school, so 8:30, 9 o'clock. This gets shut down, no deliveries, right? It opens up again you guys will probably get out at 3:30. By then, the contractor's gone for the day, but we can figure that out. So that kids can still come out here and play. All those logistics, we're now getting into the weeds of this thing.
Way far away, I know.
Way, way far away. First, let's get the referendum passed.
Let's hope for that problem, right?
But yeah, all those kinds of things we work out. But more than likely, this all will go away and come back in a new, because I want to study this to see if you really need that much asphalt, really, because we're going to have to deal with stormwater retention. That's a perfect place to put stormwater retention. We're going to have to deal with all that stuff.
I have a few, but I'll keep them super quick. So I heard several times 18 to 20-month average is what we can anticipate in terms of construction. Okay,
Yeah, about that. 18 is going to be aggressive.
right.
So let me rephrase that, 18 to 24.
Okay, wonderful. And I'm sure that varies depending on the plans as well, too.
Depends on the plan, depends on the contractor, and it
Okay.
depends on the time frame. the time of year you start, right?
Got it, okay.
Because if you're starting in winter, or you're erecting steel or masonry in winter, that slows the process down a little bit.
Exactly.
You have a winter like we're having right now. If we were building last winter, there were no hiccups with construction. This year, right now, it's harder.
Say we were to opt for one of the numbers 1 through 4 options, I don't want to say basic, no insult whatsoever. But
offense
the
taken.
more linear options. In terms of the actual renovations or facility improvements that we're seeing to the structures that already exist, how intensive do you think those would be, if at all? Are we
Well,
anticipating any
renovation-wise-
form of renovations to that, or just
All right, we'll-
untouched entirely?
We'll look at this basic option.
Linear.
Linear. You're really touching here, okay? You're impacting here
Okay,
from a renovation of this. Now, that's not to say that when we narrow down the facility improvement scope, which is Part B of the, well, I'll call it Part B of the referendum, that there may not be work that happens in the existing building, okay? Now, we look at that, we take an approach with that, with the existing building, for all your buildings, not just Alpine. Say we're gonna do HVAC replacement, right? Unit vent replacement. What we try and do is we phase it in a way to minimize the impact to the school,
wonderful.
okay? We'll take advantage of as many summers as we can, right? If, in an 18 to 24-month building cycle, we'll have 2 to 3 windows of opportunity in that. Now, the facilities portions can go faster, or they can stretch out longer than this. Okay, that's up to us on how we do it, right? Windows, we do a window replacement project. Windows typically, window replacements, the guys like to work at night. So in here, you can be in here all day long. They'll come and do these windows at night. Next day, you have brand-new windows, like you wouldn't even know that the guys were here.
Right.
And then they move around the building, right? So again, we do that so it minimizes the impact to the students.
Awesome. And my last question is a random one, but I'm just curious. I noticed that none of the actual, the driveways or the access routes ever connect to that back parking lot. Is there, I'm sure there's a reason for that, so I was just curious. So it's going to be the encroachment.
It's that line.
Got it. Okay,
I have to
wonderful.
stay outside of that line.
Right.
So again, if we were to, if when we get into the real nuts and bolts of this, if we were to go and we were to say, all right, well, we don't need 7, we need 4. Then I can start to then take this and move this back around.
Got it.
If need be.
Right.
We may not need to. I'll sit down with the fire department and say, do you want it?
Right.
Do you feel you need it? Can you service a fire from here and from here and not get back here? And if they say yes, because you have to remember, that's all cost,
Right.
right?
Thank you so much. This was super informative, and we appreciate your time for sure. So thank you.
Anyone else on the board have a question?
I have one question regarding is there any solution that you've seen so far that could keep any of the ball fields or not with that line?
I didn't go that route at this point. I was more concerned of, let's see if the building fits. The ball field really is more of a minor. This one in particular up here, I think is the older one. It's not in great shape. So I didn't, you could move this around and keep a ball field here. There are ways to do it. I just didn't look at it yet because I didn't want that to drive putting the building back there.
Sense. And then the second question, and this may be pie in the sky, but has there been any thought about even like the addition of parking, like a second level potentially of parking for a building of that size? Because it is always an issue.
We have not. That tends to get very pricey. To do a precast concrete parking garage tends to get pricey. We have not looked at that yet. When we do a study of the building overall and what the impact from what the parking needs are, but that does tend to get very pricey quickly, because for that to start to pay for itself, it needs to be large.
I have one more question. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Mr. Becker, Dr. Becker probably answered this also, but as far as the other buildings, like the other additional improvements,
Yes.
you said every building would get pretty much something,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So I know that in the past, a lot of issues have arisen when we, even talking about this issue or other issues, that electrical was an issue or HVAC,
Yeah.
like everything would be fully replaced?
Yeah, great question, great question. So what we've been doing, in addition to this work
Yeah.
that Alan and I and Chris and Joanne have been working on, there's also the other piece, which is the facility upgrades. So years ago, before I came into the district, and then it was completed pretty much as I came into the district, DeCara Rubino did a full facilities comb through, we'll call it, where they went into all the facilities and they just said, in an ideal world, forget about what cost would be, what would be, what could be improved in each of your buildings. Some of the stuff is highly necessary. Some of the stuff was, if you have the chance, sort of things, right? We started working off of that document, which has a lot in it, to really pare down for this referendum what would be the essentials, like HVAC, like windows and doors. And so that report that they produced years ago was long. And that's what we've been working, they did it by building, and we've been working off of that, really just crossing off like, yeah, this would be awesome, but not right now, not right now, not right now, sort of thing, and really paring it down to get to what we need and what would be reasonable within the referendum cost to add to. You're going to pay for the cost of this facility and the cost of the facility upgrades in addition to that.
Right, just if I could add to that, when we looked at it, we always look at, when we look to the projects, we look at getting the building, we'll call it watertight, right? That's first. Then it's life safety, then it's other pieces. So, you know, you prioritize 1 through 10. And then you say, okay, well, we really like to do X, Y, and Z, and then it comes down to dollars, right? And then it's how to allocate the money across the balance of your facilities, to allocate the projects, and also try and, you know, make it fair for everyone, right? Everyone gets something. Everyone gets air conditioning. Everyone gets, but then you get to see the we'll call it the unsexy projects, the roofs, the boilers, the infrastructure. They're the ones that, you know.
And that's what we've seen a range of. You'll see a range in these plans or in that report of highly necessary things like roofs and windows to things that would be nice, like possibly like an upgraded sound system, speaker, intercom system in the high school, let's say. Would be great. Is that highly necessary for the referendum? Probably not. So that's what we've been doing.
A quick question for you, Dr. Beck. This just is in my brain from earlier. When you were talking about the previous modules, the temporary modules at Alpine, what's the plan for reusing them or the potential new purpose that they could serve? And are they staying on the lot?
Yeah, they would stay on the lot because they're serviceable. They can be used for things. We've dumped a lot of money into them over the past couple of years to get them air conditioning, to get new flooring in there. If you walk through there, they're actually pretty nice facilities. So we wouldn't just knock them down and get rid of them. What we would do is possibly use that for some office space, maybe some child study team type space. And we have a bunch of sheds over there. And as the Alpine staff or anybody who walks through Alpine knows, a need for storage within the building. So use maybe some of the rooms for office type space and some of the rooms for storage, but to keep it on campus because why not? It's there and they're actually decent buildings. And we would have to keep them there anyway, as Alan pointed out before, through the construction process. Those students need to be in classrooms while we're working on the building.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
Before moving forward, when we do get to public comment, you can ask questions to the auditor. We're not going to be fielding any questions to the architect tonight. There will be full public involvement going down the road, public forums, public input. So just keep that in mind at public comment. All right, we're going to move on to student representative reports.
Good evening, everyone. First things first, I want to hope that everyone had a very happy holidays and a happy new year. And now we're going to get into what is coming up for the student council. So first thing, we have a student council fashion show, which we like to call our Stuco for show. This is going to be held on March 7th, and it's going to be held at the Lafayette House. So something about this, just a little background, is this is the first ever that we've ever had in school history. So it's going to be a high-quality dinner with the show at the Lafayette House. And by high quality, I don't just mean a dinner where you're going out to a bar around town. I mean something legit where you're going to get great food, great service, and everything you can imagine. So on this, the show will feature student models in different clothing from brands from around Sparta, and we will have different categories such as Sparta Spirit Wear, prom attire, and more. We will also be having some prizes that are going to be raffled off. We're not 100% sure on what the prizes are going to be yet. We still have to figure that out. But then, so just in general, this is a fundraiser that will benefit all 4 levels of the high school grades, not just one. And all the students and the supervisors have been putting a lot of hard work and dedication into this event, and we're very excited to see what the result is. Tickets will be on sale next week and can be bought through the websites. They can also be updated through our Instagrams and also through the Sparta.org website. We hope to see some of you there, and also we might even have some surprise guests for you guys. To be determined.
And it's not me.
I believe we discussed today ways that I could support this. And that's as far as I went. But proceed, please.
Big and tall clothing.
So for some past news, our winter pep rally was in December, and it was one of the most successful ones that we've had recently. So students loved the games that we were playing, and we had a lot of positive feedback on it. One of the main reasons that this was such a success was due to our new student lunch league basketball, which is just randomly picked up. A bunch of students have started making teams and playing basketball in our gym during lunch, and their championship game happened to be around the time of our pep rally, so we made that the main event, and everybody loved it. So on top of that, we also had our Spirit Week, which had themed days. We decorated the halls for winter and the holidays, which is we call Deck the Halls. And the main Spirit Week thing that we did was a huge collection with the Sparta Community Food Pantry, which we also paired with DECA, Key Club, HOSA, a bunch of other different clubs and activities in the high school. It was very successful. They were very appreciative of everything that we were able to give them, and we look forward to working with them again in the future.
Thank you. Superintendent's report.
All right, thank you. All right, as you can see on this evening's agenda, there is a formal resolution to recognize the Board of Education members, as January is School Board Recognition Month. I would like to draw special attention to this resolution, but also would like to personally acknowledge our Board of Education members and Board of Education members across the state. As I stated in the December board meeting, being a Board of Education member requires countless hours of time commitment and making decisions that are constantly analyzed by the public, and it is no easy task. Board members know this is all part of the job and still decide to dedicate their time and energy to serve our students, staff, and school community. So in addition to the resolution on this evening's agenda, I would like to extend my gratitude to all of the current and past board members who have served the Sparta community. Speaking of countless hours of commitment, I would like to acknowledge the retirees that appear on this evening's agenda. They are Ms. Wendy Anker, paraprofessional who served our schools for 12 years. Ms. Catherine Reese, the Sparta High School physical education teacher who served our schools for 25 years. And Ms. Catherine Willie, also Sparta High School physical education teacher who served our district and students for 30 years. So congratulations and thank you to all of those retirees. Preschool expansion update. Our first additional preschool classroom under the preschool expansion funding welcomes students in the Helen Morgan School on January 2nd. The class is running quite well, and we are glad to welcome them to the Helen Morgan School. As you might have seen in an email, we are hosting a virtual preschool parent night on Monday, January 22nd at 6:45 p.m. Information regarding registering for this event was sent via email and can also be found on our district website in our curriculum section. Parents who register are encouraged to submit their questions ahead of time, and we will provide all essential information pertaining to our pre-K program, including the expansion of our pre-K program on that evening. High school robotics. The Sparta High School hosted the largest robotics competition in the state this past Saturday, January 13th. All of our students performed well, and 2 of our teams qualified for the state championship. Team 5249Z earned second place overall in Saturday's competition and also took home the Innovation Award. Fall athletic honors. I wanted to acknowledge some team and outstanding individual athletic honors from the fall before it is time to recognize the winter honors. I apologize for the delay. From the fall, Nick Curry was recognized as NJSFC Man of the Year. Field hockey won the NJAC National Division. Girls volleyball won the NJAC American Division. Girls volleyball won the HWS tournament, with Arlen Salas earning the tournament MVP. Girls soccer won the HWS tournament, with Riley Mulberry earning the tournament MVP. And football won the NJSFC American White Division. Lastly, a school-based safety and security summit. On February 7th, from 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock p.m., our district will be hosting our first school-based safety and security summit that will be open to the public. An announcement and registration link will be shared with the community in the next few days. The summit will include presentations from district staff, Sparta PD, and the Center for Prevention and Counseling. So keep an eye out for that advertisement and registration. And with that, I will turn it over to Ms. Rossi for her portion of the report.
Okay, I just have a quick update in relationship to some of the items you'll see on the agenda tonight. We are recently looking at our language arts program, our core curriculum resources for grades K through 5. We're doing a substantial program review for those resources and programs that are currently in use. At the moment, we use several different resources to integrate for a comprehensive language arts opportunity and instructional plan. Those resources are all research-based and high quality, but they are kind of like siloed, and we have different programs for phonics development, phonemic awareness, reading and writing. And so we're really just looking at some new updated programs that would help us to create a more aligned system for instruction, not only between those areas of instruction, but also across the grade levels. We have a committee of teachers who are piloting some new resources, so you'll see that on the agenda tonight. That's a nice way to kind of try them out and see, what they look like and how they feel in terms of actual implementation. There are also new ELA standards and math standards, but specific to this topic tonight, new ELA standards that have been adopted by the state of New Jersey. We will have to have them implemented by fall of next school year, September specifically, as the date stands. And so we continue to utilize, those core drivers of instruction along with our local and standardized assessment data to make decisions about our specific needs. Changing core resources takes time, effort, and careful consideration. We've gone through professional development and presentations from different vendors that offer programs that might support this work. You can see on the agenda tonight, we will be visiting several districts, or one in particular that's on this evening's agenda, but to get a sense of how teachers feel the use of these programs has been and what the overall impact has been on student performance. And finally, we continue to partner with Rutgers and the Department of Ed through our early reading grant initiative to evaluate our needs, to provide professional development, and to continue to vet resources to ensure that they're the best products for our students and offer us the best opportunities for our staff. No decisions have been made at this point. It is a collective, collaborative process, and there's been a lot of work that all stakeholders have put into this, so I want to specifically thank the teachers participating. Their feedback is invaluable, and I also want to thank Mrs. Parisi, who's our K-5 ELA supervisor, for spearheading these plans. More information to come.
Thank you. Just to backtrack real quick, I forgot to do the approval of minutes. Can I get a motion for the approval of minutes?
Motion.
Thanks, Craig. Second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Before moving forward, I'm gonna, so we can get the,
I just want to go back for 1 second. The new board members who are not here should abstain on those minutes. Those were from December 14th. So just reflect that
The new board, member, if they
got that,
agree,
Joanne?
abstain, yeah.
Okay. We'll take any questions for the architect, not the architect, the auditor now, because this went on a little longer than anticipated. So if anyone have any questions, you can step up the mic. And Laura, if you just wanted to. Thank you.
Thanks, Jenny Derricks. I appreciate it, Ms. Atwell, for waiting. I'll make it real quick. What was that you indicated tuition went up 27%? Do you know what contributed to that?
The tuition going up in the revenue side of
Revenue.
things, it was primarily due to our pre-K students. The enrollment has gone up. If we are receiving the preschool expansion aid this year, you're going to kind of see that revenue shift from that category over into the state sources side of things.
Okay, because there was also a statement made that they're going to reimburse the people that paid tuition for this year. So is that going to be a burden on the school or it will be a wash?
They kind of offset each other because now that the funds that are going back to the parents is being replaced by the money that's coming in from the state.
Thank you. Also on miscellaneous revenue, facilities use, but I can get the chart on that. So for expenditures, big spike in transfer to charter schools, do we have a reason for why that happened? It went up 23%?
Just additional students that attended the charter schools.
That's it? Okay. 23% seems like quite a jump in 1 year. And then you mentioned transportation also increased, and it spiked since COVID. Do you know why there's a spike since COVID?
Well, to be honest with you, we were just talking about this earlier. There is the consumer price index. Right off the bat, that's an increase there. I think we were talking about 8% previously.
Right.
The other association with it is how a lot of school districts are seeing the increases with the bus drivers, the shortages just across the state. If you're driving around by where you see the buses all just hanging out, you'll see a lot of times there's going to be signs that are posted where we're trying to get bus drivers. When we do find them, now we're having to pay them more. We're getting creative in the ways to recruit them now with giving sign-on bonuses in some cases. A lot of the companies, when we're having to outsource, those costs are drastically increasing. And then with COVID, we had the restructuring of how we might have had those routes going versus how they were going previously, because now we might be distancing our students or kind of changing the needs of, change with the times and how we're structuring those processes.
Thank you. Just a couple more. What is the capital reserve right now? Where are we?
The capital reserve, I did mention this number.
It's about $1.2 million. Yeah.
And I'm glad that you brought this back up, because after the architect came on, we started talking about the referendum more. I want to revisit the idea of, ideally, we're going to try and maximize our reserves, right? Get up to what the state allows us to do. But the one component that makes you different than other districts is that we also had to consider the amount that we were probably going to go and get a referendum for, which was a big portion of our long-range facility. With the municipalities, it comes more clear about their capital plan. They specifically spell out what the plan is for the future, as well as where those funds are coming from. I don't personally feel that you see that as much with the school districts as clearly. So that's one component we have to consider here versus other places. So when we're thinking of stability, even though our reserves may look like it's a bit low compared to what our facility plan is, it might not be as low as we think it is, because there are other pieces that we have to consider, like the referendum that's going to be coming on and covering a good portion of that facility plan.
Thank you. I only had one other question. What is the maintenance reserve?
Another number.
So the maintenance reserve was at $13,000, and then through the audit, we just put an additional $124,719 in maintenance reserve.
Okay. Scary.
So we're
Okay.
trying to rebuild some of the reserves, and the way that that does happen is through, if there is surplus in a given year, we can put money into the
Move it
capital
over there,
reserve
right.
or maintenance reserve. So
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
You're welcome.
Does anyone else have any questions for them before they leave? All right. Thank
Thank you
you.
again.
Thanks for staying around. Okay, moving on. President's report, I just have a quick statement. Every day throughout the week, we receive emails, phone calls from concerned parents about questions, concerns, complaints about a respective school or something that's happening within the school, co-curricular, what have you. We understand your concern, and we want to get everything rectified, but your complaints and concerns have to start at a building level first. Don't come to us. We don't want to be your first phone call. Go to the building administrator. Try to get it resolved there. If he can't get it resolved or have any questions, he'll call Dr. Beck, and then it'll filter out through there. So please start with the school administrator or whatever department it's involving before coming to us or sending us complaints. We're not mad about it, just a lot of times we'll handle it and we'll call the building administrator. They have no idea what we're talking about. It could have been handled weeks prior, so just going forward. Thank you. Okay, a motion to approve the HIB report.
Motion.
Thanks, Craig. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Joanne.
Ms. Collier?
Yes.
Ms. Gagnon?
I'm abstaining, and I just want to explain why very quickly. I didn't understand how to properly access the detailed report, so thank you to Dr. Beck for walking me through that. This won't happen again. Thank you, but I'm going to abstain tonight.
Ms. Lonsky?
Yes.
Mr. Paleski?
Yes.
Ms. Seelander?
Yes.
Dr. Serrano?
Abstain.
Mr. Wood?
I'm going to be abstaining, similar to Caitlin.
Mr. Morris?
Yes. Okay, moving on to delegate liaison reports. For the town council, shared services, we are scheduled to meet this Monday just to start back up, new year, new ideas, projects. We'll report out on that next meeting. That's all I have for that one.
I have a couple of things. Moving forward, we are going to try to report out on the committees that we're sitting on, so I'm going to start with that. We've had a lot of presentations tonight, so I'm going to try to keep it brief, even though we did discuss quite a few things. We talked about LEAD. There are some remaining ESSER funds for professional development. A portion of the grant was allocated for accelerated learning, coaching, and educator support. So this is, the LEAD program is going to run. It's run 3 times now, and this is going to be the 4th. So that's going to be happening. Teachers can sign up and collaborate outside of the school setting. The teachers will be approved through personnel. St. Elizabeth, this is a 3-year partnership. We're going into year 2. Some of the next steps are for February. They're going to come to a board meeting to give the community a pretty large update on what's been going on and some action plans for the future. Kindergarten COGAT, there have been some discussions for a long time in regards to this. The gifted and talented teachers have attended the information session and also acknowledged some potential changes to the program manual. So we're just going to do some work to align some of the assessment practices for K-5 for gifted and talented identification. There's a high-impact tutoring grant that's going to be approved under finance. And then we're already talking about budget. Obviously, there's been a lot of talks there, making good progress. There was a lot of focus last year on online licenses, and we've really been working to streamline that, and we're continuing to look at platform usage and how online tools complement instruction and support personalized learning. So we're going to continue to eliminate resources that are not worth the financial impact. So this is, kind of a moving target, and we're still looking at that. As far as SEF is concerned, the 10th annual wine and food pairing event is scheduled for March 9th. It's the barn at Hillside Park. It's from 7 to 10 p.m. Tickets are already on sale on their website, so if you're interested in that, you can get tickets there. It was a great event. I attended last year. A lot of fun and a great fundraiser for the schools. I think that's it for me.
And just to follow Wendy, a quick report out of Finance and Ops. Transportation, as we just discussed in the auditor presentation, of course, we don't have the CPI for next year yet, but we are benefiting from the bus law being increased for us to keep buses in use longer. And we are very pleased to move forward with the full-time standby driver, which would allow us flexibility in routes. And we appreciate Joanne and her team coming up with more solutions to save money within the transportation, and including having more transportation for our out-of-district students. Buildings and grounds, there's constant maintenance going on, but as Dr. Beck mentioned, we had welcomed our newest students to HMS with a newly painted, refurbished room for them. And we are starting to take on some of the ESIP savings now that we're completing the SHS solar project, which is slated for completion the beginning of this week, right? Going on to next week.
It should be by the end of,
Okay, by the end
Yeah,
of
by the end of
122.
June.
So we'll be able to, okay. Once that's complete, we'll begin to recoup some of the energy cost savings as we recoup the cost of gas and electricity. Finally, as far as budget's concerned, we will be reporting out more in February, but we were pleased to see the benefits of having 2 budget secretaries, one for pre-K 5, one through 6 through 12, to help utilize some cost savings as we're looking across the buildings. We don't yet have access to the software state numbers, but we do expect to have those numbers in by the end of February. Just to note that this year, the 2% levy, in addition to enrollment adjustments and continuing contractual obligations, will likely consume the approximately $1.3 million from the levy. So we are continuing to rely upon the $700,000 surplus that we've historically used to carry over. And Joanne and team have been looking to replenish our maintenance reserves by allocating some of that $700,000 surplus to put $570 towards general fund and $125,000 towards maintenance reserves, which should put us in a little healthier position. So we'll report more next month on the budget as we move forward, but those building level meetings are being wrapped up, and we appreciate everyone's efforts. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. Moving on to public comment number 1. Public comments are invited on all matters pertaining to only to action items at this time. Please state the action item number as well as your name, municipality, and group affiliation if appropriate. For the record, each participant will be given 3 minutes to speak. Once you have your allotted 3 minutes to speak, you will not be permitted to speak again until public comment number 2. All statements should be directed as me as presiding officer. The board or the administration may or may not respond to any questions or comments after the conclusion of public participation.
I'll sign in when I get done. Jenny Derricks, tap into Sparta. 15.7 lead. Wendy, you touched on it, I believe. We're talking about the resolution that has high school teachers and admin stepping into the lead program. The training is coming from where? Is it going to be the same program that we see in the elementary school? Where is the instruction and when is the instruction taking place if it's going to be at the high school? 15.12, academic awards policy 5440. We're getting closer on this one. In section G, number 2, it says additional awards, and it still doesn't quite reflect what currently is in place, and the wording there seems to restrict it, removing. I understand the need to be vague and to leave some doors open for judgment calls by the admin, but what the language shows here is it says the additional awards will be announced at the annual academic awards dinner, and that's not even what happens right now. There's a senior scholarship dinner, academic awards presented at a breakfast in the morning, underclassmen academic awards, and a top 10 dinner. And this is what's happening right now, but the way the way the policy is written, it seems to exclude all of that with one academic awards dinner at which time awards will be presented. So maybe we could take another look at that. The Hoboken visit, 16.5. I think, Ms. Rossi, you were explaining that is to evaluate possible curriculum, ELA curriculum. Thank you. The 17.3 transfers. Joanne, it's the same transfer form as December? Were there no other transfers?
There were just some transfers, but they probably were not significant.
Okay, because the form still
Yeah.
reads December.
Yeah, no, it should be,
Okay.
if they put the right one in, yeah.
Okay, it looks like it still says December, so. And then 17.8 Chromebooks. Has there ever been a discussion, I brought this up with past administration, discussion to go to High Point Solutions to have a conversation with them about what they could do for the district to support different technology endeavors and initiatives. They are an internationally recognized company that do have work. They have people on staff internationally certified that stay in touch with what's coming and what's already in place for educational standards. And so they are looking, as they say, over the horizon at what districts need, and as well as helping them achieve funding. And packaging, they've even done some packaging programs, some bidding processes that have had vendors help out with school projects. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, motion to close, public comment number 1.
Motion.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Tara?
Did
You
you say
got-
Tara? Yeah. Okay, so LEAD is confusing because it stands for something completely different. There is a LEAD program. This LEAD stands for Lead Educators Across Disciplines, so it's to build capacity for staff. It's professional development outside of school hours, where we collaborate, share best practices, develop and refine lesson plans. We used the model that another school district had implemented that was highly successful, and so it's a sign-up program, and we have the funding specifically for building capacity and coaching, accelerating professional development through ESSER, so we're running another round of it. So it's completely different. Yeah, I know, confusing. And then you said Hoboken, right? That's to look at the implementation of core literacy programs for grades K through 5, so to get feedback on what that's been like and what kind of impact it's had on student performance and achievement. And I think the next one is for you, Matt.
Yeah, regarding High Point Solutions, we've been meeting regularly, Joanne, Tara, I, and some IT department members, as we start to build our technology plan. And absolutely, High Point Solutions comes up quite frequently as a possible vendor to use when we're looking at mapping our network and utilizing them for different services, yes, because they are local and they are highly respectable.
Okay. Moving on. Can I get a motion to move personnel and policy 15.1 to 15.17?
Motion.
Thank you. Craig, second.
Second.
Thanks, Vanessa. Joanne?
Ms. Collier,
Yes.
Ms. Gagnon,
Yes.
Ms. Lonsky,
Yes.
Mr. Pelesci,
Yes.
Ms. Seelander,
Yes.
Dr. Serrano,
Yes.
Mr. Wood,
Yes.
Mr. Morris.
Yes. Motion for curriculum 16.1 to 16.11.
Motion.
Thank you. Second.
Second.
Thank you. Joanne?
Ms. Collier,
Yes.
Ms. Gagnon,
Yes.
Ms. Lonsky,
Yes.
Mr. Pelesci,
Yes.
Ms. Seelander,
Yes.
Dr. Serrano,
Yes.
Mr. Wood,
Yes.
Mr. Morris.
Yes. Okay, a motion for finance 17.1 to 17.11.
Before we move this, I just wanted to bring up item 17.3 on the transfers. It does reflect that this is the report for the period of December 1st, 2023 through December 31st of 2023. But so it is the same, but is this the same report that we did approve at
It's
the first
December's
meeting?
report. Yeah.
Right. So this should be reflective for the January report.
It should be December.
Or we should be reflecting just, I just want to make sure
So
we're.
you're doing,
We're catching up
you're-
from December, so it is
Yeah,
the
you're
correct report.
verifying the
Right.
December transfers and then also the December board secretary report as well.
Right, so next month, we're
Next
looking
month
at
it'll be
January, so we're okay. All right, I just wanted to clarify. No, it's okay. All right, so I will make a motion to move those items.
Okay,
I have-
second?
I apologize, I had a question about that, I'm so sorry. I had a similar question, Joanne, for 17.10. It looks like there's just a donation from the Sparta High School music boosters listed under what's a revision to a motion 17.8 for weight room equipment. So I think it's just, does that just belong?
Right, this was the
One
entire
category.
motion that was done, so the
Got it.
way we do handle it, we just delete the line that's
Awesome.
being amended.
Thank you so much.
Can I get a second on finance?
Second.
Okay. Assuming there's no more discussion, Joanne?
Ms. Collier,
Yes.
Ms. Gagnon,
Yes.
Ms. Lonsky,
Yes.
Mr. Pellecci,
Yes.
Ms. Seelander,
So I am going to abstain from 17.11 since I sit on the Sparta Cheerleading Booster Club board, but yes to everything else.
Dr. Serrano,
Yes.
Mr. Wood,
Yes.
Mr. Morris.
Yes. Can I get a motion for operations? There's only one item.
Motion.
Thanks. Warren, second.
Second.
Vanessa, discussion. Joanne?
Ms. Collier,
Yes.
Ms. Gagnon,
Yes.
Ms. Lonsky,
Yes.
Mr. Pellecci,
Yes.
Ms. Seelander,
Yes.
Dr. Serrano,
Yes.
Mr. Wood,
Yes.
Mr. Morris.
Yes. Okay, does anybody have old business to discuss? New business? Okay. Moving on to public comment number 2. The board uses second public comment period to invite comments on all matters pertaining to your school district. Please state your name, municipality, and group affiliation if appropriate. For the record, each participant will receive 3 minutes to speak. Once you have had your allotted 3 minutes to speak, you'll not be permitted to speak again. All statements should be directed to me as presiding officer. The board administration may or not respond to any questions or comments after the conclusion of public participation. I don't care.
Are we ready for me?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Angela DeLucia, and I am the very proud president of the Sparta Education Association. While the weather may be cold, the activity in all 5 of our schools is definitely heating up. The Alpine, Mohawk Ave, and Helen Morgan before-school programs are in full swing. Our educators are providing extra support and enrichment in the mornings so that our students will increase their confidence and improve their practice in language arts and math skills. Our members teach beyond the traditional classroom walls. Our co-curricular advisors have cultivated award-winning programs. Some may think that winter is a time for slowing down, but that is not the case for us. Competition is in the Spartan genes. Our athletic teams are working and playing hard. In fact, Coach Brennan and the boys basketball team earned the trophy at the holiday tournament. Archery has begun its competitive season. Robotics hosted its annual competition at the Sparta High School last weekend and earned many accolades. DECA competed at Ramapo College last week, and we have record numbers advancing to the next round. HOSA will be participating in its first ever competition next week. This, coming on the heels of a wildly successful middle school musical, SpongeBob, it certainly takes a village to create such a professional production. Our everyday work and our after-school sports and activities are a great source of pride for every single one of our members. With our educators and paras working directly with our students and the support of our secretaries, IT, and security guards, the success of our students is always our priority. I would be remiss if I did not mention the support of our custodians and maintenance staff who constantly go above and beyond to ensure that our spaces are clean, clear, and safe 7 days a week. Lastly, today, Sparta Education Association had the honor of being visited by NJEA's Vice President Steve Beatty. We were selected because of our deep connection to our community, our pride in public education, and our desire to improve the futures of both our members and our students. The SEA would once again like to welcome the new members of the board and the presiding officers. and looks forward to the good work that is ahead of us. We appreciate the support of the board and the community as we continue to do what we do best, provide outstanding instruction, resources, and support for our students. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Motion to close public comment number 2.
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Anyone have anything for good of the order?
I have a couple of things.
Lovely.
I'll be quick. Like Angela said, the middle school play was fantastic. With that being said, the Sparta High School play, Wizard of Oz, is coming up in March 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. Tickets went on sale on the 15th. So I found them on the Sparta Spring Musical Instagram in their bio. I believe the website is showticksforyou.com. So those are on sale now. What? It's on the high school's homepage. This play sells out every year, so if you're interested in going, definitely get your tickets. And then some other happenings, I think Mohawk Avenue and Helen Morgan have a Harlem Wizard event coming up. I think last time it was through Alpine, and it sold out. Another fantastic event for the community and students and teachers. So that is at the high school on the 28th. I believe there are some tickets left for that, but not many.
And I apologize, I usually include that in my superintendent report, the middle school musical. I thought of it when I sat down and I saw Jen Hamilton sitting there, as her son was a lead. But Angela said it and Wendy said it. I attended that on opening night with my son, and as always, thoroughly enjoyable, and I cannot wait for the high school musical as well.
Dr. Beck, are you playing in the Wizards game?
I was not invited.
I think he's
actually.
saving himself for the fashion show, is what I thought I heard.
Evidently, yeah.
I'll be at the
One thing at a
fashion
time.
show.
I'm focusing more on my fashion now.
Okay, fair enough. That's fine.
Evidently. That I was invited to.
I'll be super, super quicker. Unless were you?
No, no.
Okay. Super quick. I wanted to thank the SEF for stepping up to provide that donation that we see in the agenda regarding the weight room equipment. I thought that was really awesome of them to step up, and certainly I'm sure there are a bunch of students who are really relieved. So thank you to them. I also had SpongeBob musical written down. I bought my Wizard of Oz tickets. I couldn't attend the SpongeBob musical because my family was on Battleship, New Jersey with our Cub Scout pack. I would have rather been at SpongeBob. But it was, yeah, we look forward to the Wizard of Oz. My whole family attends, and we're very excited. The performances are always amazing, so congratulations to the middle school students who participated. I just want to say I look forward to weighing in on the referendum options with the community and our board as a whole. I think a lot of what we saw tonight was really inspiring and kind of gives us hope on the horizon for a very long-standing issue. I look forward to the tough challenges to come with that. And I also encourage the community to stay involved throughout. I understand Dr. Beck is going to make sure everyone has every opportunity to be involved, and I think it's really important that we all weigh in where we can. Some of the emails we received this week that Kurt spoke to, it's amazing how many issues we have that can be solved when we solve our overcrowding issues in multiple buildings. So I look forward to exploring those. And lastly, I'm looking forward to my new role as liaison to the town council alongside Kurt. I look forward to our first meeting with the town council on Monday. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, we're now going to go into closed session. Closed session will be legal matters only. No action will be taken coming out. Can I get a motion to go into closed session?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.